Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. It is always a pleasure to welcome back to the program national correspondent for The Nation magazine and host of the Time of Monsters. And it certainly is Jeet here. Jeet, thanks so much for joining us. It feels like every week we're moving into a different phase of really of authoritarianism, right? I mean,
No. It does seem like things are starting to hit the fan. And one is sometimes a bit reluctant to start using this language because you don't want to be, the boy that cried wolf. But like actually, there's more and more wolves. And there's even like stuff that I don't think people are paying enough attention to, which are quite striking. I actually think that the Charlie Kirk assassination and then this latest attack on the ICE facility, both actually like very ambiguous events in many ways, but they're trying to use it for everything that it's worth. And there's stuff that people don't talk about, like the declaring Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization, which has like real potential for being used as against the left more
Well, we
broadly.
talked about that yesterday a little with Ken Klippenstein, and I
the
asked,
nihilistic
yeah,
NVE, is
right,
it violent
and
extremism?
I was asking him about that because I saw some reporting saying like, okay, this executive order where he makes this declaration doesn't have any teeth. He doesn't have the ability to change it via executive order. But Ken pushed back, and he said, I think that reporting's a bit misleading because it's really not a question of some official declaration. It's just how does our law enforcement on the federal level prioritize things? And Trump
Yeah,
has clearly told them prioritize this, and that's really all he needs to do.
That's exactly right. I also had a conversation with Ken exactly along that line. I think more
He really
broadly,
gets around, that guy.
the more broadly, the way to think about this, I think, is that this is the ultimate sort of blowback from Bush's war on terror. That within the global war on terror, you had this kind of apparatus that was set up to combat Al Qaeda, and even at that point, I mean, a lot of people said you're fighting terrorism, which is like a tactic, and you're certainly using the American military, which is not maybe the most efficient way to deal with things. But there was such a thing as Al Qaeda. There was a network, and there's ways in which you could disrupt that. But what Trump's entire worldview involved is, coming out of the failure of the war on terror, which ended with two big wars being lost. The right has turned inwards, and they want to use the apparatus of the war on terror domestically. And people like Gorka, Sebastian Gorka, are come out of that, and they're going to use the sort of worldview and a way of thinking and state apparatus that was used, in the Middle East, is going to be applied domestically. And I think that if you think about what that would mean, it's terrifying. It is the war, to use the old 60s slogan, bring the war home.
Yep.
Well, they are bringing the war home.
Yeah, indeed. And I think, your point at the top, suggesting like it's hard to use the word authoritarian without, because you almost want to keep some powder dry.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like when you've when you've been pushed off a cliff, have you fallen off a cliff if you haven't hit the ground yet? Like, I mean, it's quite clear that we are headed down this path. And I've had these conversations with people, more normie types, and the almost universal response is, something to the effect of like, well, we're just going to get through these next 2 or 3 years. And which I think is not, it's sensible, but I don't think it works that way. I don't think that you just, this stuff runs at an increasingly higher, accelerates and runs at a greater pace. And then all of a sudden it just ends. I think the idea is that step by step by step, they consolidate power. And, just the idea that Trump wouldn't attempt to cancel elections, whether it's either in 2026 or 2028, seems, the idea that he wouldn't attempt to do it seems pretty far-fetched at this point. And
Yeah.
we're a week
Yeah.
out from Hegseth getting all the generals and admirals together, and there is historical precedent for this type of thing where they bring these generals in and say, like, you better swear your fealty now or you get fired. The original was in German, but so this is like,
Yeah.
this
No,
is
no,
when
I
you
mean,
got to stop this stuff, right? Before you fall off that cliff.
No, I think that's absolutely right. They are sort of like in a phase of consolidating their power and turning over, transforming the instruments of state power into their own ends. And I think one has seen that, especially with the FBI, where this really is Kash Patel's FBI. And I know that they're good people that are working there, and one does see a sort of tension, especially in these kind of recent shootings, between the people who are the sort of fact-finding part of the FBI, where they're gathering evidence, and having concluded in all the big cases that these are basically lone wolves, that they, there was no network. But then you get Kash Patel and Trump and all these other people, like saying, putting out this narrative that there's this vast left-wing network, that it is a transgender ideology, Antifa, and where does it lead? And I would also say, this sort of the actions that they're taking do not suggest that they plan to contest elections. And this goes, not just the sort of repressive aspects, but also even their economic policies. Like I don't think that you kind of do the kind of austerity and slash and burn stuff. I think well, we'll just put it to the voters. But I mean, we don't know. I mean, and certainly the time to fight back is now. And I mean, the other worrying thing is that we have seen, time and again, surrender of elite institutions, surrender of the universities, surrender of big law, surrender of Wall Street, surrender of the media. And to the extent that there has been resistance, it's come from popular forces. I mean, the Jimmy Kimmel case, as trivial as in some ways it is, was the case that there was mass popular mobilization of people canceling their Disney things, and that is what transformed it. Whereas Disney seemed perfectly happy to surrender. And so I mean the twin dynamic of an increasingly aggressive administration and an elite that has basically decided to take the approach that you outlined of, let's just wait till the next election, let's wait 2 or 3 years. That's not a good dynamic.
These may be triplets, not just that twin dynamic.
Yeah.
The stuff that's happening in the context of CBS and Paramount and the potential that Ellison will also buy Time Warner, which would mean then CNN and The Daily Show, Comedy Central, HBO, in one rather large fell swoop, you could see the elimination of a lot of the sort of mass media that would provide a critical perspective to those normies who think oh, it's going to go away in 4 years. We should also say I think that's your smoke detector that's going off. Is that yours?
It is, but that's okay. That's normal.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to, yes.
The fire's always going off.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to let people know what that noise was. But I mean, it is really, it is disturbing and it's nice. Like you say, the Jimmy Kimmel thing may be trivial, but any display of pushback on the administration is good. What is, I would say, the only thing that seems to be inconsistent with other authoritarian style, I guess, growing authoritarian states. And we should say, Stephen Miller was, if not quoting Goebbels the other night, clearly
channeling him.
Well, I don't know that he's channeling. I'm they're studying this.
Yeah.
They're studying these things, and I don't know if how much you need a roadmap, but they're looking for roadmaps, and those roadmaps have not led in very good places.
I mean, I would argue that the way that they are trying to incentivize ICE recruitment is very much borrowed also from the Nazis.
Oh,
and
sure.
Trying to create this like lucrative option for these wannabe fascists.
But the one thing that they're not doing is providing those economic benefits that often comes hand in hand with an attempt to consolidate power. All we're seeing is either some version of austerity, whether it's going to be in Medicaid, and we're going to see it in the context of what's happening with Obamacare and these tariffs, or austerity that's sort of like papered over and pushed into the future. There's no like handing out benefits, which is often, sort of one of the plays. That may be the best, that may be the one sort of saving grace when we talk about if there's an opportunity in 2026 with all the, gerrymandering that's going to happen for at least a slow on the roll of them taking power.
Yeah, no. I mean, that is an interesting point. I think the sort of plutocratic aspect of the American right has always cut against doing the more populist authoritarian thing of you build the Autobahn, you create jobs. Say what you want about National Socialism. At least it had an economic policy, but on the other hand, I mean, I think what Trump is doing is maybe doing it on a more personal level. I'm the president. If you are nice to me, kiss my ring, I'll throw you favors. And maybe like trying to also even like with things like the farmers, like the tariffs hurt the farmers, but then I'll take the money from the tariffs and give it to the farmers. Like there does seem to be some element of trying to
the
make
ICE stuff. That's what I was kind of alluding to. Is those are the only the economy's falling apart. The only economic kind of benefits that they're providing are for their Gestapo, which is they're borrowing that from the Nazis. That's also what they did.
Yeah, no. I mean, the ICE stuff, and like all the money that's going to building these detention centers. There does seem to be something like you're creating a sort of cadre of loyalty, and also to go back to the Hexa thing, trying to make the military as your Praetorian Guard that is loyal to you. So I mean, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself, but it's all heading in a very bad direction. And as I said, I'd be a little bit more confident if there was like a coherent opposition.
Hey folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.